Welcome to the Anti-Gamer. Welcome to the Anti-Gamer Show. Welcome to the Anti-Gamer Show. The Video Games Ratings Enforcement Act is now being proposed to the United States House of Representatives, and I definitely support this 1,000,000%, and every single responsible real gamer should support this as well. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the third episode of the Anti-Gamer, and where we discuss basically we gotta ban video games, the limiting of video games, and the accessibility of video games, especially to young, impressionable children. Now, this news article, and there's a link to the description box, you guys can check it out. A new bill is basically trying to make the ESRB ratings legally binding, meaning that that rating system on video games where it's rated M for mature, A to O, adults only, rated E for everyone, and all that. Well, they're trying to make it an actual law where you have to put it, they have to include every single game to have that rating system. And if you're caught basically trying to sell these games to somebody who is just a child, so somebody who's younger than 18 or 17 years old, depending on the rating system, that you will actually face some kind of penalty, you're basically breaking the law if you do this. And if you get caught doing this, it says right here, you could be punishable for up to a civil penalty of $5,000 per violation. Oh yeah, definitely. This is definitely a step in the right direction. It's getting there. It's getting there to the point where ultimately we want to ban these games, because these hyper violent video games, and limiting the accessibility to these games is definitely, it's the first step. We're taking the first few steps. There's all these different things going on where people are actually stepping up. People are trying to pass laws. People are trying to get discussion going. Like, for example, the NRA speaking up against violent video games, and how, obviously these violent games cause shootings, they cause mass killings, they cause a lot of violence. You have the state level Missouri representative trying to introduce the HB 157. Basically, it's a proposal that any games that's over rated E, so like rated T, rated M, A to O, they have to be taxed 1%, when they release these games. So, and then basically the revenue, so the money, the tax that you get by releasing these, very violent games, their proceeds actually go towards mental health programs in the state of Missouri. So, it's all for a good cause. You're trying to basically rectify, things like, the shootings, and you're trying to at least the United States is trying to step up. They're trying to limit the availability. Because, you take a look at the problem. The ESRB rating system is voluntary. That's right. How many people knew that? It's entirely voluntary. But, and that's the problem. It's like, it's not mandatory. It's not a must thing to do. And you gotta enforce these things. You gotta enforce, and you gotta really make it a legal law. You gotta have the rating system in there, and it's gotta be binding, and you gotta have penalties to anybody that's caught selling basically adult-only or mature games. And you know what? Let's throw in rated T for teen as well. Rated T for teens, that should be penalized as well. You can't sell it to little kids. Maybe if you're 17, 18 years old, then you can buy rated T games. So if you're 17, 18, around that, you're almost, you're in high school, you're about to graduate high school, you're allowed to play rated T for teen games. And somewhere between, I would say, 30 years old. If you're 30 years old, once you reach 30 years old, you're allowed to play rated M games, so M for mature, and then going all the way up to, let's say, 60 years old. So 30 to 60 years, and then after 60 years old, then you're only allowed, until then, to play adults-only video games. I mean, I've mentioned it already, they should have actual time limit, and you should limit the availability of these games at a certain time. I mean, why stop there? You gotta keep going. Also introduce laws where you can only, let's say, an M-rated game, you can only play Call of Duty, or God of War, or Assassin's Creed 3, or Super Mario Galaxy. These hyper-violent, ultra-aggressive video games, you can only play it for 30 minutes every single week. 30 minutes a week, that's pretty good. That's enough for that particular violent video game, so that you limit the exposure. You limit the exposure to these hyper violent video games. I mean, because next thing you know, I mean, we're gonna be living in a society that's kind of like a Clockwork Orange, where you got these crazy gangs running around, and you got Alex and his droogs, and everybody's acting like a psychomaniac. Drinking Synthamask, and saying words like droogs and Devachka, basically running amok, and raping, like, young girls, and killing people and beating up people. That's what's gonna happen. You watch that movie, A Clockwork Orange, and that is the future of this country. That's what's going to happen if you let violent video games continue. So we gotta keep limiting it. You gotta let these laws pass. I mean, they just released all these mega violent games, in the past month or so. I mean, you got stuff like Devil May Cry, and killing babies and pregnant women. I mean, you have so many games that's about to come out, and you got all these titles like Lego City Undercover. I mean, the violent amount of blood and gore in those games. The Lego games are like the most... They've had so many, Lego Batman, Lego Star Wars, the most brutal games I've ever seen. You're basically running around killing these little innocent, Lego characters. Yeah, when I was growing up, Lego was like innocent. It was for kids, it was kid-friendly, and then they made violent video games about it. And then it just became out of control, it just became completely, like, mature. So, this bill is going to be known as the Video Games Ratings Enforcement Act. And we got to support it. HR 287, that's what it's called. HR 287. And I hope they pass it, definitely. Video games have got to go, and this is definitely one of the early steps. You got to start limiting it, banning it, just censor it. I mean, they had the thing with, President Obama, even, he called for, like, an investigation into violent games, you know what I mean? Like, further investigations in those things. So, I mean, that's pretty much it. Definitely down with violent games. Support the movement. So, if you clicked on this video, you watched this vid, immediately you agreed, you automatically agreed. Definitely anti-gamer, another episode. Thank you for watching. So give this video a rating already, give it a thumbs up. I know you're sitting there, you're just nodding your head like 100% agreed. Down with violent games. Matter of fact, ban all games, period. So that's it for this episode of the Anti-Gamer, and that's about it. Till next time, peace.